We are 1 week from signing day. So what's the latest on DJ Pickett, Jahkeem Stewart, and Dave Portnoy spills the beans on the Bryce Underwood flip? It's Locked on LSU. Let's go.
You are Locked on LSU, your daily podcast on the LSU Tigers. Part of the Locked on Podcast Network, your team every day.
Okay, let's get it. It is Locked on LSU, your team every day. I'm your host, Matt Moscona. Thanks for making us your first listen. We are free, available wherever you get podcasts, of course, on YouTube as well. So please subscribe. As always, one of the best ways to help us grow is to leave your comments below. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel, where you can start the season with a big return on FanDuel. New customers can place a $5 bet, and you'll get started with $150 in bonus bets if you win your first $5 bet. Visit FanDuel.com to get started. So we are 1 week from National Signing Day. We've got the latest on DJ Pickett, the latest on Jahkeem Stewart. Are there other flips to watch, both into and potentially out of this LSU class? We'll get to all of that. But we'll start with some content that's been making the rounds. Dave Portnoy, the founder, CEO of Barstool, we know was heavily involved in the recruitment and ultimately flipping of Bryce Underwood. And now we know how that went down. Of course, over the last month or so, we've been talking about it here when Portnoy first got involved, saying he wanted to be Michigan's quarterback man. He'd go from $1 million to $3 million. And ultimately, he got the ball rolling on what was a deal that got Bryce Underwood to Michigan. Dave Portnoy was on one of the Barstool platforms, and he told the story of how that all came to pass. He started saying that he was on the phone with a Michigan, someone associated with Michigan, and they were asking him if he would join on a call with a woman who was a big fan of Barstool's and wanted to have a conversation with him about the Bryce Underwood situation, and this is where it picks up.
I said, Larry Ellison, the number 2 richest guy on the planet? Yeah, I'll take that phone call. That night, we're on a Zoom. Me, Jolin, Larry Ellison. And we're talking, and I'm like, Larry, where'd you go to school? Oh, Illinois. Well, all right. Jolin, what about you? Michigan. Interesting. When'd you go to school? I believe she said the guy who didn't wear headsets.
Brady Hoke.
That era. Brady Hoke era. And she said, I never want to live that era again. We're the national champs. I have 2 kids. I can't stomach waking up on a Saturday knowing that we're not the best team on the field. I said, I'm with you. What do we have to do? What do we have to do? I know what we'll do. Let's set up a call tomorrow night with Bryce Underwood and his parents. And we talked and we pitched Bryce. I said, listen, first of all, Barstool and the marketing, but more importantly, Larry Ellison and Joel, and nobody can match this. This guy's a legend. And we pitched, but oh boy, Michigan's back. And I didn't know how it would come about or the role I would play. But Jolin, on that first phone call, she's like, I needed somebody to step up from Michigan and show that they cared as much as I did. And then it was like the mega powers uniting.
A couple of things. Number one, Dave Portnoy, clearly a huge fan when he doesn't even remember who Brady Hoke is. Ask any LSU fan, and they could call to mind. I know who Curly Hallman was. It didn't go great, but everybody knows who Curly Hallman was. I can't even remember who Brady Hoke was. Yeah, massive fan. And then the other thing there, notice what Portnoy said. He was on a call with Larry Ellison and Ellison's wife Jolin. The 3 of them were on a Zoom with Bryce Underwood and his family. No mention of Sharon Moore or anyone on the Michigan staff. If anyone ever, heretofore, and by the way, just to clear the deck, I wish LSU, my school, my alma mater, had a deep roster of billionaire boosters that were willing to throw around stupid money for a high school player that's never taken a snap. Okay? I am envious. I do not fault them. I think good on Bryce Underwood. He got paid. They got a great player for their for their school. It sucks for LSU because they did everything right. They invested 3 years into recruiting Bryce Underwood, all the resources of flying up there, bringing his family here, everything, all the texts, the emails, the time, everything to recruiting Bryce Underwood. And you had him committed for more than a year. And because the founder of Oracle dumped $12 million on his lap less than 2 weeks before signing day, you lose. It sucks for LSU. Great for Michigan, sucks for LSU. But don't let anybody ever, whenever this comes up ever, don't let anybody ever tell you about the great job Sharon Moore did or the relationships they built or the time they put in, because Bryce Underwood never stepped foot on Michigan's campus from July of 2023 until 2 weeks ago, when ultimately he had an opportunity to have $12 million dumped in his lap. So he took a courtesy visit before signing the back of the check. I don't begrudge him. Kid got $12 million. Good for you. Hope it changes your family's lives. But if anybody tries to ever convince you this was about anything other than the bottom line, it could have been Elon Musk recruiting Bryce Underwood to the University of Mars. And if he dropped $12 million in his lap, kid would have taken it. It didn't matter that it was Michigan or Sharon Moore or anyone. It was about the money, 100% about the money. The money was big enough to talk. Now, the question for LSU is, where do they go from here? There was an initial fear that there would be a Pied Piper effect. You'd lost 3 games. Bryce Underwood decommitted. Would other players follow him out of the class? As a matter of fact, what's happened is you've gotten a lot of recommitments. Defensive lineman Zion Williams out of Texas, he's recommitted to LSU. Harlem Berry, the 5-star running back from New Orleans, has affirmed his commitment to LSU. Damian Shanklin, the number 1 player in the state of Indiana, who Michigan tried to get in on here late, reaffirmed his commitment to LSU. I had a chance to talk to Shea Dixon from On 3, the Bengal Tiger, about his reaction to what's happened since the Underwood flip.
There's been a lot of them, which is the good news. Look, I mean, stopping that losing streak by beating Vandy, and then no decommitment since Underwood, that followed him right away. And then not one LSU commit of the 26 guys went to another campus this past weekend. So you've had a number, double digit, well into it, guys from this class reaffirm their decision. And if you go to the Bengal Tiger, I've written about all of them. But most notably, I would say Texas. Look, last week was pushing to get 5-star Cade Phillips onto campus and was making a big move on the NIL front. At the same time doing that was Zion Williams, LSU's 4-star D-line commitment from Texas, and they wanted them both in for the game, and LSU did what they had to do to get it shut down. And neither of those guys went to the Texas game, and both of them said they're locked in with LSU. And obviously we've seen a lot of Louisiana guys doing it, but Michigan went after Damian Shanklin in the past 2 days, who is LSU's 4-star, top 150 edge rusher coming out of Indiana, has been one of the top-ranked players up there in the Midwest for a while now. And he told me this morning, look, but I'm sticking with LSU. That's where my relationships are. That's where I feel comfortable with. And that was a big win for him, because right now, when all of a sudden Michigan's collective just got really, 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 really big, they are going for every kid that's out there. And every time I refresh something, Matt, I'm telling you, with a different team, they're saying, one of our top commits just got contacted by Michigan. And that was not something any of us would have predicted 6 months ago.
Well, there are 2 names in particular at the top of LSU's wish list that we have to consider. I shared this story with you, but I was told a couple of weeks ago that there were 3 players that LSU is willing to do what they had to do to keep: Bryce Underwood, DJ Pickett, Jahkeem Stewart. Well, they missed on Bryce Underwood. What about the other 2? Shea Dixon has the absolute latest there. Next, Locked on LSU, your team every day. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Get ready to tackle the NFL action with FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook, because right now, new customers can bet $5 and get $150 in bonus bets if you win. The FanDuel Sportsbook app gives you everything you need to place live bets on the NFL all in one place. So when you get a hunch in the middle of the game, you can check out the latest stats, view live play-by-play, and so much more on the same page where you place your bets. Just visit FanDuel.com to join today. You'll get started with $150 in bonus bets if you win your first $5 bet. That's FanDuel.com. Never waste a hunch and make every moment more with FanDuel, an official sportsbook partner of the NFL. So, as we're now a week from signing day, there are two players primarily that LSU is holding their breath on and hoping for the best. Let's start with the one that LSU presently has committed. DJ Pickett is the highest ranked commitment currently in LSU's class with Bryce Underwood off the board. Pickett in the on-3 composite is the number 10 overall player in the country. He's the number 2 cornerback in the composite. However, 2 of the 4 services have him as the number 1 cornerback, On3 and Rivals. 24/7 and ESPN have him as the number 2 cornerback. Forgive me, 24/7 has him as the 4th best cornerback. Whatever. Anyway, DJ Pickett is 6'4". He's 180 pounds. He is a 5-star plus in On3, the On3 composite. And he is a guy that is from the Miami area. And Miami and Oregon have continued to recruit him hard. And LSU is trying to get this thing across the finish line. Shea Dixon joined my radio show after further review to talk about DJ Pickett.
Anxiety is nothing more than what everyone knew they were going to be feeling in the end. He picked LSU over Miami and Oregon. Those are 2 of the biggest. Mini Phil Dan Lanning has an empty checkbook that Phil Knight just gives him. And Miami obviously has deep pockets when it comes to NIL. So being a Florida kid, that worry was always that, oh man, does Miami come in here at the end and just, it's over? And look, they're pressing. They're doing everything they can, and LSU simultaneously is doing all they can to hold on to them. But Matt, I don't know if this isn't an accurate description to the 100%, but right now it's almost like 75% of conversations that are going to be had are about NIL. Like, Corey Raymond's job's done now.
Yeah.
The job now you've got to almost do beyond telling a kid, hey, look, why did you commit here? It's because you want to be developed and you wanted to play with me. And that's why you even had interest in LSU, because he started that when he was at Florida recruiting him. And look, LSU's NIL presentation and all that for him is worthy of what a number 1 corner is. And with Underwood off the board now, you've got a little bit more to move around, and certainly Pickett is an absolute priority for them. And he's a corner, and they know he can start right away. So this is a guy that, yes, perception-wise, Matt, but just reality-wise, they have to have. They got to get him, because he is a guy who can help you for 2 to 3 years, 4 years, whatever it is, and is going to end up being a first-round draft pick, and you're trying to rebuild at corner. So it's just about holding on, and that's one more week of not just old school recruiting, but going through agents and contracts and all these different things that have never existed before now.
I don't think any of the old school recruiting saves you now. The truth with Underwood is the same truth with Pickett. DJ Pickett is committed to Corey Raymond. LSU has a very healthy NIL offer on the table for DJ Pickett. What we will learn over these next 7 days, number 1, how much of that $1.5 million that LSU had earmarked for Bryce Underwood they're going to commit to DJ Pickett. And if it's not enough, what type of Godfather offer did Miami or Oregon lay at DJ Pickett's feet to leave LSU? And that's what it will come down to. As Shay said, the old school recruiting is done. Corey Raymond did his job. He's had DJ Pickett committed since July, and he's kept him committed. If DJ Pickett leaves at this point, it's for the exact same reason that Bryce Underwood left. Somebody dumped a Godfather offer on him, and he takes the money. How competitive can LSU be with the money? We're going to get that answer in very short order, in less than a week. Now, the other one is Jahkeem Stewart, and that's one you don't have committed. We've told you the Stewart story up until this point. He was the number 1 overall player for the class of 2026. He reclassified. He's going to be an early enrollee. There's a little bit of risk because he's only played 1 high school season because he transferred to St. Aug. He didn't play as a freshman, played his sophomore season at Aug, now is transferred to Edna Carr to be able to graduate early and early enroll, but the LHSAA deemed him ineligible. So when he shows up on a college campus in January, he will have played one high school football season. But this is a freakish defensive lineman that everybody in the country wants, and that Michigan recently re-offered. And I was told over the weekend that Michigan is willing to dump a big pile of money on Jahkeem Stewart as well. It is worth noting that on a Tuesday, Steve Wiltfong, National Recruiting Director for On3, did put in a prediction for Jahkeem Stewart to USC. His stated final four are LSU, Ohio State, Oregon, and USC. Now, Michigan reoffered, but Wiltfong is projecting USC. Now, he does give only a 60% confidence meter there, so we'll see if that holds up. This is another one where LSU has done every bit of recruiting you can possibly do. Frank Wilson has done a masterful job. Frank Wilson is a giant part of why Jahkeem Stewart is even able to reclassify. Frank Wilson did a lot of legwork in New Orleans to help get Jahkeem Stewart into school to be able to reclassify, to be ready to play for the 2025 season. But it could be another situation where one of these schools with deeper pockets decide to throw around ungodly amounts of money. I'll be interested to see how this goes, because LSU faced something similar a year ago in reverse. So Texas A&M had fired Jimbo Fisher, and they were losing a lot of their class. And LSU did a fantastic job of plucking a lot out of that class. Weston Davis, Cohen Eccles, Gabe Relaford, Dominic McKinley. I mean, LSU went in and plucked out 4 big-time prospects out of that A&M class. And there was one more, if you remember, it was Terry Bussey. And LSU wanted him, and they got him on campus, and they were courting him hard, and it looked like they may land him. And ultimately, A&M said, not happening. They said, we got deep pockets, and whatever we got to pay, we're paying, because we've lost enough, we ain't losing him too. And they just made that commitment. I'll be curious to see if LSU gets pot committed with DJ Pickett and or Jahkeem Stewart to see if it goes the same way. For whatever it's worth, here's what Shea had to say about Jahkeem Stewart.
Oh, I can be the first one to tell you that I don't know. I just from reclassifying, which shortens your kind of span of time that you're able to make a decision, to now being in that crunch time. He's been on a stretch of visits over about a month and a half, I would guess, that included Oregon, USC, LSU, Ohio. He's going back to Ohio State this weekend, and then next week signing day. So, that's certainly the group. We saw Michigan reoffer him after Underwood flipped to Michigan. So I think he's getting pulled in a million directions. Obviously, he's going to have a lot thrown at him here at the end, because he did reclassify, and not many D linemen are out there, DTs, to start with, or guys as versatile as him in the D line who could play a couple of positions. So when one pops up who's uncommitted, everyone's after him. So I've convinced and this is from talking to Steve Wiltfong on the national level. This is talking to the other schools involved who talk to sources around their programs. Everyone's saying, hey, look, our school feels like they can make a case it is them, or they can make a case that they're in 4th place here, that you just don't know right now. And maybe after this Ohio State weekend, I think his is one that Monday, Tuesday of next week, I think we start to hear clarity on, because I bet that's when he's going to really settle into that final decision.
You think he makes a decision on Wednesday?
I do. I think that's what he said the plan was, so I'm going to believe that he will go through with the early signing period, which would be on Wednesday, and then enroll early, which would mean going somewhere in January. So if he's sticking to that plan, we'll know the answer here in a week. And again, for a 2026 kid to move to 2025 and then stretch out, visits, it's a lot to do. So just even from talking to those kind of close to him, I don't think he's got this one nailed down 1,000% just yet.
So that's the absolute latest on the biggest prospects left, and we're less than a week away, or exactly a week away, from finding out that answer. Okay, it is Locked on LSU, your team every day. One thing left to do is talk about flips. Current guys in the LSU class who might flip, and what targets might LSU be able to land here with signing day a week out. It's Locked on LSU, your team every day. It's unavoidable in every signing class. There are always going to be flips. There's going to be players that flip into your class and players that flip out of your class. Some 40% of LSU's class a year ago were players that they flipped. I just mentioned 4 of them that they flipped specifically from Texas A&M. But what about the other way out? We started this episode with some pretty good news. Cade Phillips, 5-star cornerback, the number 5 cornerback in the country in the composite. Texas was supposed to get him on campus for a visit. He's from Missouri City, which is in the Houston area. Didn't take that visit. He's solid to LSU. That's fantastic news. Derek Meadows is another one that we're keeping an eye on. Now, Derek Meadows is the big receiver from Michigan who's prepping at Bishop Gorman right now. You know, when he committed to LSU over the summer, the thought was that he was going to be a Notre Dame commitment. He surprised everybody when he picked LSU. Well, he's taken visits since then, but has not come back to LSU, which led many to believe that he would, in fact, leave the LSU class. However, Meadows is coming to Baton Rouge this weekend for the Oklahoma game. So might it be an opportunity for LSU to keep the big 6'6" wide receiver in the class? We'll see. Some of the scuttle around Meadows is that he might be looking for a little more money, and maybe LSU isn't willing to extend it there, that they feel tapped out with Meadows. And if he leaves the class, that's what it is. You'd love to have a big 6'6" receiver in this class. We'll see how that may all play out. Another player that is, I think, critical is Tyler Miller. Tyler Miller is an interior offensive lineman. He is one of the top interior offensive linemen in the country. He's the number 6 player in the state of Mississippi. He's from Laurel, Mississippi. And he passed on Ole Miss and Mississippi State to commit to LSU. And he's been committed to the Tigers, although there was a late push last week for Tyler Miller to flip to Ole Miss. And apparently LSU bowed up. And maybe this is another example of LSU that something we'll never hear about. Like, we'll never hear the details necessarily of it. But with Bryce Underwood leaving the class and that freeing up more funds, and you're able to be more aggressive to keep your guys if you want to, this may be an example of it, because it certainly seems like Tyler Miller at this point is firm to LSU. We'll see how that may all play out with signing day a week away. But again, Tyler Miller was one we were keeping an eye on, who apparently seems like he is going to be solid to LSU now. The other is Mike Tyler. Now, Mike Tyler is a tight end from Columbia, South Carolina, committed to LSU. The hometown Gamecocks have ramped up their recruitment for him. Of course, LSU has another tight end already committed in the class, and J.D. LaFleur, the son of David LaFleur, who's a former All-American and first-round draft pick at LSU. I mean, you did lose a couple of tight ends out of last year's class, and Mac Markway leaving LSU in fall camp meant you lost your big blocking tight end. So Mike Tyler at 6'3", 230 is more what Mason Taylor looked like when he signed with LSU, but there's some scuttle that perhaps Mike Tyler might end up staying with the home state and hometown South Carolina Gamecocks, but a week to go there, and we'll see how that one finishes. The one big name to watch as far as LSU potentially flipping a prospect into the class is Solomon Thomas. Now, Solomon Thomas is a 5-star interior offensive lineman from the state of Florida. He has been committed to Florida State, and amid their awful season, he has still stayed committed. But when Florida State fired Alex Atkins, who was their offensive line coach and their offensive coordinator, Solomon Thomas started looking around. A week ago, he was in Gainesville when LSU played Florida. And then this past week, Solomon Thomas was in Baton Rouge for the Vanderbilt game on a visit. Could the Tigers pull off the big flip of the 5-star interior offensive lineman Solomon Thomas? Here's Shea Dixon.
Yeah, that early on, everyone was trying to get, and he's been to campus probably 4 or 5 times, but everyone was on Solomon Thomas, and he committed to FSU. And as everyone continued to push, he was really, really outspoken about, I'm sticking, and they were losing every game. And he was like, I'm sticking, I'm good. Then they fired their O-line coach, and he even said, hey, look, I still love FSU, but Atkins was my recruiter, so I'm going to go take a couple of visits, and those were Florida a week ago, LSU this past weekend. We'll see what he's up to this week, but he is certainly in play. I've always thought he would stick with FSU. If he doesn't, Florida feels pretty good about it just because it's in the Sunshine State. It's not far from home for him. He could still have family around, but we've seen Brad Davis pull off flips late with O-linemen, and every cycle so far, including Weston Davis, a 5-star a year ago, followed by Cohen Eccles, like right before signing day, who will probably be your next starting center. I still just think that I'm a little far out to call that one. I would put the focus on the good news here, which was the reality of what it had to be. The number one O-lineman in Mississippi is Tyler Miller. He's committed to LSU. The number one O-lineman in Arkansas is Karius Kern. He's committed to LSU. Both those guys are top 10 interior offensive linemen in the country. Kern's the number 2 interior offensive lineman in the country. You got to lock those guys in, and I've talked to both of them. Or I would say I'll talk to Tyler's mom and then Karius's camp. Both of them are locked in. Both said we're good to go. Both said they're signing next week, and both are going to be on campus this weekend. So I think more than anything, people will want to talk about, let's not talk Underwood anymore. Let's hope Pickett doesn't flip, which is kind of where I think the conversation should then go from there. Is you've got a great class. The focus should be on holding on to those guys. And if you're able to do it, Pickett included, obviously, next Wednesday's the day for celebration, even with the gut punch that was Underwood, because they have put together a class that addresses a lot of needs. And because of that, you can go in the portal, know what you need to get. They seem, as Brian Kelly very kind of boldly said, that they've got a plan. They feel very great about it. They're going to be impact players. So the goal is getting more talent on this roster. Getting to next week's signing day by holding on to the big pieces in this class is going to be key.
Speaking of Brian Kelly talking about Boley saying they're going to be aggressive, in our previous episode, I did a full-length episode with everything that I could possibly tell you about LSU's NIL and transfer portal strategy. Would highly recommend you go check that out. Hey, thanks so much for making us your first listen every day. We are free, available wherever you get podcasts. If you're on podcast, please subscribe on your favorite podcast app. Rate us, leave a review. If you're on YouTube, please smash that like button, subscribe to the channel, hit the bell so you're notified whenever we post a new video, and let a friend know that if they love the Tigers, we got you here every single day for Locked on LSU, your team every day.